Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. This statement made by my senior colleague and a neighbor is more timely. Yes, we are all neighbors. Pro East and Salaga, sir. Yes, we are neighbors. And this is something that we need to bring to the fore, and I think Aja has done justice to this matter. When you look at the dimensional poverty that we have, it is quite imperative, and the onus lies on us as leaders and policymakers to begin to think of how this society is growing into. In fact, the youth today, who are African children also, are the very people who are making poverty, who are making healthcare deliveries and other things quite paramount. So the onus lies on us to make sure that the African child today feels proud belonging to Africa, feels proud that you need not to travel outside the shores of Africa before you can become wealthy or before you can become, be able to afford a 3-square meal. Of late, we see that our children begin to feel that you have to travel out of this country. You have to leave the shores of Ghana or Africa before you can be able to make it in life. And this thinking is serious. And as leaders, we should begin to shape the thinking of our youth. I always say that the educational system we have in this country has done so well for us, but in as well also brought a lot of troubles to us. Because today we have growing unemployment amongst our youth. And it's just because the kind of training we give to our youth is so much questionable. You have youth leave universities, youth leave the schools, tertiary institutions, and they come looking for job. Government cannot do it all alone. Government cannot employ all our children coming from the university, coming from the tertiary institutions. And I always say that TVET education has been relegated to the background. Technical vocational education and training has been relegated to the background to the point that people begin to feel that it is the less endowed, people who are quite dunderhead, people who don't matter, they really have to go this extent. But Mr. Speaker, the only way to be able to do this and make sure we get the youth to be proud of being an African is to get the youth to have some skill, so that he'll be proud of. Yes, Engineer Gomado is here. He's a TVET product. And today, he's proud. And look, beyond Parliament, he still has his profession. Recently, he went to repair our ferry. So what we need to understand and to make sure that our case will be feeling proud as Ghanaians is to make sure that we get them sustainable educational development, so that once they leave the shores of the tertiary institutions, or they leave the 4 walls of the tertiary education, they have something to prove. Today, we have a lot of dropouts. The free senior high school education is very good, but yet they come out of school and then they don't have anything to show off. I believe that the TVET education is something that is going to help us to articulate the views of our children, to articulate their well-being, to make sure we develop them in such a manner that they will become relevant to our society and they will continue to stay well within the job enclave. As we say, with the youth, it is these same children that grow into that. And as we have our kids, there's only one thing we can do to prioritize our children as parents, and also to make sure that we train the child. The good book that we all use, the scripture says that you spare the rod and you spoil the child. So we should try and begin to speak some sense into our children and begin to discipline them. I feel this is something that is missing in our society, and growing up, our children are not living up to expectation. Mr. Speaker, among other speakers, these are a few things I want to add up, and thank you for the opportunity.
Speaker. I would adopt part of the submissions of the last speaker, the aspect of TVET and technical education. But before I even get in there, let me commend the maker of the statement, the respected Hajia Zuwaira Mohammed Ibrahima, MP for Salaga South constituency. Mr. Speaker, my colleague who spoke before me, like I said, makes very profound statement. It is true that years back we invested in basic education. That investment resulted in free basic education. Then we went a step further to make secondary education free. Now that created a certain perception that from secondary school you must necessarily go to the university. And it is only through a university degree that you become somebody, as we normally say in Ghana. But it's also true that we later invested in TVET and technical education, vocational training. And that is where I want to spend some time to make the argument. Speaker, Switzerland now has a policy that encourages the youth to pursue artisanal vocation, learn skill. So they have a system in place to provide the incentive. So largely what the government is doing is to discourage many more youth from going to the university, and that is creating an opener for job creation. Mr. Speaker, what we find in our country, Ghana, today, is that because of the emphasis on white-collar education, all of us want to go to university. So even the technical universities, which were previously polytechnics, that were awarding HND and all of that, we say degree awarded. So our people are not looking at tapping that aspect of their talent. That is where the jobs are. So today government may publish that I've created so much jobs. But the question is that those who are acquiring the jobs, are they Ghanaians? They are not. Because the emphasis has been on university degree. So, Mr. Speaker, if today this matter has come to our attention, then I would want to underscore the fact that we would have to take it on board and get government to invest more in skills training. We need to let our youth understand that advancing your skills does not make you a less human being. No, because that is where you have the jobs. If somebody is going to learn tiling, carpentry, masonry, the person wants to become a steel bender, that is a skill. He can get a job there. But Mr. Speaker, if we emphasize degree, look at the number of university graduates who come in, even in parliament alone, to do their national service. After 1 year, they become very redundant. They become desperate because the jobs are not there. And I must state that government cannot absorb, no government can absorb the number of degree holders that come out of the university. It's not possible. The place will choke. So we need to create a space for skilled labor. We need to create a space for those who have their talent to explore. So we have to invest in our vocational training institutions and incentivize it. Make sure that we create an incentive so that I would be proud to send my child to an NVTI get my child to nurture that talent rather than saying at all costs, because I'm a lawyer, you should also train to become a lawyer at all costs. No, there would be a problem. Mr. Speaker,